Okay, thank you, Viru. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Jim Quancy, Senior Director of Software Partner Development, starting off our first DevDays webinar. I'd like to thank you all for coming. These webinars are all being recorded and will end up in YouTube within 2 or 3 days of us actually giving them. Should you want to point other people at them to share this information. There are 2 short webinars that do include non-disclosure information available only to ADN members you would register through the ADN extranet, and the recordings will be available on the ADN extranet, and I'll show a little bit of that at the end. But most of the recordings are open to the public. And as Stephen mentioned, should you have questions as we go, do jump in, go to the questions panel, ask. You may get a private answer in text, you may get a public answer in text. Stephen or Viru may jump in and ask me to talk about a subject that they think might be particularly interesting that several people care about. This is going to be a bit of a different presentation because we're going to have 6, 7 very technical classes, and mostly on what's happening with our desktop APIs. So most of you, and most of Autodesk, who drives most of our business today through our desktops and through our desktop APIs, we want to make sure you're ready for the 2019 releases of these desktops, as we would do in any dev days. And we're going to dig into that. And today's about talking about the disruption that we've been working our way through this last couple of years, and giving you a bit more background on that. Okay, is it gonna let me? Here's my slides. So classic business growth, maturity, birth, development, growth, maturity. And this is where, Autodesk went through over a period of about 30 years. And that was our classic desktop perpetual business. The disruptive innovation phase really has been this move from perpetual to subscription, and perpetual kind of single products to this subscription with collections, whether that's an AEC collection or, a product design collection or an M&E collection. That's kind of the new business process, the new system, the new platform. If you look at Autodesk revenue, per quarter, well, this is actually, it says per quarter, it's actually per year. This is, you'll see what our revenue has done over a period of 14 years. It went through that rapid growth in that fiscal year 03, 04, 05, 06. And then for the last 6 or 7 years, it's been quite this kind of choppy. But if you kind of look at it over a several-year period, Autodesk revenue, it's choppy, but it's relatively flat and mature. Again, that classic sign of maturity in a product offering and in a business model. Now, with what Autodesk has been doing, moving to subscription, here's the revenue broken down by maintenance. So these are people who have perpetual licenses and are paying annual maintenance to get the latest releases. Perpetual, which Autodesk stopped selling, well over a year ago now, and you can see that drop. And then subscription. The thing to really take notice is the growth in subscription over the last year. It's quite linear. Quarter by quarter, adding 140,000, 150,000, 160,000 new subscribers, and we're just reaching that, I'll call it, crossover point, where subscriptions are bringing in more revenue and more customers than any of the other business models Autodesk has. So if you look at where we are, this linear growth quarter by quarter, you can see where we're going. So again, adding 140, 150,000 new subscribers, and that's net. That's like really bringing on maybe 180, 190,000 subscribers each quarter, and then you always lose a few. You might lose 20, 30, 40,000 a quarter. You net out 140, 150,000. Each one of those, maybe paying on average $800, $900 annually for their subscription. And that number really keeps going up. So here's a forecast that, looks out another 3 years into the future. Quite linear. How far is this going to go? Only time will tell. But you'll start to see this in Autodesk overall revenue and really profitability numbers, since we're at this point where we've kind of reached crossover where subscription and subscription growth is the major driver of Autodesk, revenue and profit growth. And why should you care? A healthy, growing user base for Autodesk means a healthy, growing prospect group of customers for many of you, those of you who are software developers. Or if you're an Autodesk customer, it means Autodesk has the money and the wherewithal to keep investing in both desktops and in the next generation of growth that'll be coming over the next 5 years, around the cloud and around Forge, which many of you have heard about in the past. So again, Autodesk revenue looked at over a period of 14 years. We had this classic getting started, rapid growth, maturity, and with subscription model with collections, we're going through this next wave of growth that should take Autodesk from what was kind of bouncing around just over $2 billion a year in revenue to probably a good $3.5, maybe $4 billion in revenue, primarily on desktops. This is not counting kind of born in the cloud revenue. This is not about BIM 360. This is not about Fusion 360. These are classic, it's AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Inventor, Max, Maya, Revit. This is the classic Autodesk business, really based on collections and on a subscription model. So we're working our way through this second wave. And as I showed earlier, the actual growth quarter by quarter is very much driven by the number of users and the average revenue per user per year. And it's pretty linear. We've got a solid year, quarter by quarter, showing this growth. So, you can never predict the future, and trying to predict the future is a dangerous thing, and you should always be careful. But this one looks pretty predictable, barring a general kind of global economic problem. Right now with the economies of the world kind of hitting on all 8 cylinders, pretty much everywhere around the world, things are looking quite good. Okay, so again, moving from the perpetual model to the subscription collection model. Now, you may say, hey, that's all great, but I don't understand how this actually works. How does Autodesk go from this kind of flat $2.5 billion a year company to what's going to be $3 or $4 billion a year company? I see the numbers, but it's like, why is that actually happening? What are customers? Are they just paying more? What's the deal here? I don't understand. And I really wanted to, take you through that, because what really matters is how the new model allows us to reach new customers. And again, for many of you, what's important is that gives you the ability to leverage Autodesk for you to reach many more new customers. And it comes down to, pre-subscription, it wouldn't be unusual for a single seat of a desktop Autodesk product to pay, maybe $4,500 to get a perpetual license. And then you'd be paying another, $500, $600, $700, $800 a year for maintenance. And yes, maybe for AutoCAD, a perpetual license would be $4,000, maybe for Revit, it might be $5,000, maybe for something like Civil 3D, it might be $6,000, but it's kind of in that $4,500 region. And think about how that feels if you need to buy a perpetual seat. You have to put out that much money. And maybe you need to buy 5 seats or 10 seats. Then it's about $20,000, $40,000 for perpetual license. And what's the behavior? It's like you really got to think hard. How many seats do I want? Because this is such a big commitment. Or maybe what you're buying is a collection, an AEC collection, a manufacturing collection, a media and entertainment collection, where that perpetual license would be $8,000, and that maintenance might be, $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, $2,000. It's a lot of money. compared to subscription, where you can add that next seat for maybe $1,500 versus perpetual of $4,500. So when you, a customer, are going, hey, I want to add a seat, I've got a new project, I'm bringing in a new employee, $1,500, that's like a phone bill. For your mobile phone, if you travel a lot, you're talking to people internationally, it wouldn't be unusual to be spending $100 a month on your phone bill. So to pay that for your design tools, that's not a big leap. That's a modest operating cost. If you're getting a subscription of a collection, again, you may be paying $2,500 subscription per year. And again, you don't have to think as hard. You can sit there and go, yeah, that's about $200 a month, cost of doing business. And after that project is done, if I don't get the next project right away, I can just stop paying the subscription and I don't have this ongoing expense. I didn't have to put out this $8,000 perpetual license. So this just lower cost of entry is really what's driving Autodesk growth, over this last year, and will be driving our growth over the next 3 years. This change from a perpetual to a subscription is very much about lowering the cost of entry for customers, for the designers and engineers of the world to have access to Autodesk tools, right? When you look at subscribers, when we look at subscribers, 30% is new customers. And it's not really the existing customers shifting from perpetual and maintenance to subscription that's driving the growth. There's a little bit of growth there, a couple percent. The big growth are the new customers who are coming in. And with subscription, once they come in, they stay. Unlike with the old perpetual model, they would come in and we might not hear from them again for 5 or 6 years. So they stay. So these 30% new customers, so this is for those of you who are ISVs, this is just a great opportunity, a way for you to reach a larger base of Autodesk customers. If you look at the Autodesk subscribers, again, notice over the last year, the growth in subscribers has been quite linear. And there's every reason to believe this is going to continue over the next 3, 4, 5 years. So you can imagine over the next 3 years, we will double the number of subscribers. Over the next 4 years, we will triple, if not quadruple, the number of subscribers. So the number of users is going up a bunch. And again, driven by it's relatively low cost to get a subscription. It's relatively low risk to get a subscription because if you don't need it anymore, you can just stop paying for it. So people are quicker to get subscriptions. This also includes around things like piracy. People would pirate our software because to buy a perpetual license was, it was a lot of money to put out. And now with the subscription, hey, if you can get a subscription for $1,500 or $2,000 a year instead of having to put out $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, you more often will say, hey, I'll pay the subscription and not take the risk of being a pirate. Okay, so with that, as we increase the number of active users of Autodesk products, of our desktops, of our collections, the number one way for you to take advantage of this growth from 2 million subscribers to 4 million subscribers to 6 million subscribers over this next couple of years is through the Autodesk App Store. This is the number one marketing tool. Now, it's also becoming a sales tool, but it's clearly the most effective marketing tool Autodesk has to help you reach customers. And if you are an Autodesk customer, it is absolutely the best way to find solutions to problems. And we've reached a kind of a major milestone in the Autodesk App Store. I call this 3 cubed. 3 major milestones reached in just the last few months for the App Store. We have over 3,000 apps. We have over 3 million downloads since the App Store first opened about 5 years back. And we had 3 million visitors in calendar 2017 alone. A little more of that data. Look at the number of visitors going up by big chunks year by year by year. It's amazing how linear the growth is. This is. So we have more visitors than we have subscribers. So there's absolutely, our customers, our users are coming back again and again and again. And a lot of that's driven by the fact there are so many apps, over 3,000 now. When our customers have problems they're trying to solve, when it's late, on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and they need to get a project done by the weekend so they can take the weekend off, so they can, because they're being pressed to submit a project by Monday, and they're doing something that's repetitive in nature. They know they can go to the App Store and find a specialized app to help automate, that task they have in front of them, allow them to get home sooner, so to speak. And there's a lot of great apps out there to help our customers do that. Again, the growth in downloads, again, amazingly linear. We're just about to hit, we're close to hitting 1 million downloads a year. Now think about this. This is like 1 person in 3 that comes to the App Store downloads an app. And this is really a testament to the fact that, our team who works with many of you who build apps for the App Store, making sure we've got a high quality app, we have apps that deliver real value. Customers have come to trust the apps in the App Store. They know they're going to be quality and deliver value, and it's going to be an easy install. So we've got good growth on these downloads. It's absolutely working. Again, for many of you, if you're new to the App Store, apps can very much be about marketing. Now, they have to deliver real value to a customer, but the best way to start a relationship with the customer is giving them something good of value that shows the quality and the value of your apps. And then you can go back later and talk to them about selling what may be bigger, more expensive apps. But at that point in time, they trust you. They trust you based on having touched an app that you've built, not trust you because of what you say. It's, if here in the United States, they talk about people from Missouri. Missouri is the show me state. Missourians are the type who say, don't tell me, show me. And the App Store absolutely helps with that. Again, number of apps in the App Store. We have now broken through the 3,000 apps. And again, pretty linear growth. My manager who runs the App Store, Viru, we used to, 3-4 years back, I used to joke and say, hey, Viru, are you ready for a store with 5,000 apps? And he kind of looked at me, because this was back when we had 700 apps. Like, Jim, you must be crazy. But you know what? It's happening. And again, for you and ISV, 5,000 apps, you may go, hey, I don't care. It's about my apps. But what you do care about is there's a marketplace, there's variety, because that's what keeps users coming back. And users coming back creates the opportunity for you to find new users. And clearly for customers, the more apps there are, the more likely you will be able to find apps that will help you get the job done faster, easier, quicker, smarter. Paid app sales. I've been saying for years now, paid app sales are interesting, but that's still relatively small. But we're close to 10,000 app sales a year. So though the App Store, the #1 value for our partners and for is really marketing, or for customers, finding new partners, new software developers that can really help your business, it's becoming a sales place too. Again, we've had a big jump this last year in the number of sales through the App Store. I believe some of this is not just about the App Store making it easy to buy, but I think it's business to business. It's customers getting more comfortable with buying online. We're all very comfortable with buying online as consumers, but buying online as a business to business, that is still kind of relatively rough. But I think we're actually turning a corner there. Okay, so again, as Autodesk goes through this growth of subscribers, the #1 way for you to engage with that increasing number of subscribers at Autodesk is to leverage the App Store. Now with that, everything I've pretty much said here has really been about what's happening with our desktops. Most of what DevDays this next 2 weeks is about is talking to you about our desktops, our collections, and putting you in a position to support the 2019 versions. But with that, I'm going to spend just a few minutes going through a few Forge basics. My expectation is those of you who are really Forge-centric may have attended a Forge DevCon. You know, we're running Forge DevCons in Vegas, in Germany, in Shanghai, in Tokyo, and that's kind of the place to go to be up to speed on what's happening. You know, the Forge DevCon in Vegas, there's probably 40 different classes that were all recorded and are available online that you can go to. So I'm not going to talk a lot about Forge, and you won't see a lot about Forge over the next 2 weeks, though you will see some. But I thought I'd just take the opportunity when I'm talking about the Autodesk business to talk about the next wave that is coming based on Forge. So as we move from the perpetual, you know, single product wave to the subscription collection wave, there is another wave that's building. It's still in the early days, and that is very much, you know, about what's happening with Autodesk, you know, cloud services. So things like BIM 360, things like Fusion 360. We have hundreds, actually we have over 1,000 partners and customers using Forge today. So this build up for the third wave of Autodesk growth, a wave that you can catch, and many of you are starting to catch, really powered by Forge. Again, quickies on the Forge APIs. There's the data management API for navigating files, for pushing files back and forth between, like, say, BIM 360 and your cloud service or your app, or Fusion 360 or any of the Autodesk hubs. BIM 360 team, Fusion 360 team. You know, data management is the way you kind of move files around. The model derivative, which is the master translator. You know, whether you're getting thumbnails or whether you want to get an OBJ file, or you want to get a viewable, which is an SVF file, whether you want to get geometry, whether probably the most valuable thing that model derivative delivers is helping you extract data, metadata, parameter data, attribute data that can be used for counting, scheduling, purchasing, cost estimating, planning, bills of materials, kind of that kind of information. There's the viewer, which I suspect everybody here has seen at some point. It is clearly a powerful way to deliver what has been complex CAD information to near anybody, near any device, near any time, without having to do an install without a desktop, really allowing a much broader group of people to get involved with a design, whether that be a machine or a building or an infrastructure project. There's design automation, which AutoCAD has been out there for over 2 years now. So it's AutoCAD as an engine on the cloud that you can run the AutoCAD APIs you know and well. No user interface, just an engine. And we are in private beta for both Revit and Inventor design automation engines. And it'll be about 3-4 more months where these will be released for commercial use. You'll be able to use as engines. And that's everything from, maybe with Revit, you want to, you know, from a web page, make changes to some parameters. Maybe with Inventor or AutoCAD, you want to crank out PDF files automatically on some basis when files change. So really, again, it's the Revit, Inventor, and already the AutoCAD engines up on the cloud that in most part, you can use the APIs you already know for the desktops with these engines. Reality capture, commercial release came out during the Forge DevCon just 2 months back now. Being able to turn photos into meshes that you can then use to, let's say, compare against a digital terrain model, some kind of infrastructure, or increasingly construction sites where people want to capture what's happening. You know, it used to be weekly, but it's almost turned into, with drones, a number of construction sites do this every day, where they fly drones, they get the photos, they get a model. So they've got complete documentation on what's happening in a construction project day by day. And integrating that with BIM 360, which has become really the central, you know, data repository for kind of all things BIM and all things on a construction project. Coming soon, new BIM 360 APIs, things about, issues and RFIs and submissions and Q&A checklists. And so those APIs will be coming. Probably be, I think it's going to be 3-4 more months before we get what we want there. But just be aware it's coming. This image I have here, just so you know, the App Store is actually surfaced inside of BIM 360. And you're going to see this increasingly as, with our cloud offerings, with our software as a service. You can actually take kind of a skinned version of the App Store with the appropriate apps. And many of these apps are, there's no installation. It's just really adding an entitlement, turning access on. And it's amazingly kind of simple and quick to do. And for those of us who've been living in a desktop world and dealing with installs and updates, it's kind of refreshing. Never having to do an update. Updates just kind of happen. Once I've added that app entitlement to my instance of BIM 360, and as we move forward, we'll start to see this in other places like around Fusion 360. What else coming soon? For those of you into security and privacy, we've had SOC 2, which is kind of the gold standard for reliability and security for most Forge services. We've had that in place for several months now. A bit more work there to go. But the next biggie is GDPR. This is the European privacy policy. This is the law of the land in the EU starting in May. And Autodesk is working hard on this. We will absolutely be GDPR compliant. For those of you who are building your own services, if you're not familiar with GDPR, I encourage you to learn about it. Now, writing on Autodesk's Forge will help you more easily be GDPR compliant. But depending on how you keep customer data, GDPR, the big issues are customer has the right to be forgotten. You need to have an easy way for a customer to say, hey, count me out. And for those of you who have built cloud services, you may have customer data in a couple of different places, and you kind of need to separate out kind of operational sales data that you do need to retain from individual user information, which if the user wants to be forgotten, you need to forget them. The other thing GDPR does is it allows users, customers to ask for their data. So that what they may do is, give me all my data and I'm leaving. And it's empowering a customer to be able to do this. It's important. Customers need to have this confidence that they're not being trapped, they're not being locked in. This is their data and they're in control of it. And again, Autodesk is fully committed. If you're using the Autodesk Forge infrastructure, a large part of what you may need to do will be done for you. But again, I encourage you to learn more about it if you're doing business in Europe. And frankly, it's not just about Europe. Being GDPR compliant will help worldwide, because I think what GDPR requires is really something that every customer, every user wants to know, that they're in control of their personal data. Both who has access to their data, who doesn't, and being able to get their data when they want it. Okay, the other thing in the lab, ARVR Toolkit. Now, we've had a recent change with the ARVR Toolkit. If you were at the Forge DevCon, we talked a bit about it. This is about publishing content from CAD into an ARVR experience, typically through some middleware, such as Unity or Unreal, or maybe you're doing WebVR. Maybe it's ARKit from Apple or ARCore from Android. The ARVR Toolkit was helping you prep your data to make your content get into these experiences in a very easy way. So we were looking at actually making a web service. Now we've made a decision. We're really going to open source. We're going to basically take the ARVR Toolkit, and this is going to happen in the next week or two, and put it out there as a big code sample on how you can use Forge to feed your ARVR pipelines, to feed your Unity, Unreal, ARKit, ARCore, WebVR pipelines in a very easy, simple way, and really putting you in control. We know with ARVR, people spend more time prepping content an order of magnitude more time prepping content than they actually do building the app, building the experience. The other thing ARVR Toolkit, that code sample shows you how to do, is how to deliver CAD content to an ARVR experience in real time, where you don't even have to pre-publish it. Actually during the experience, you can bring content in, kind of at runtime. The other thing coming, and I bring this up, it's a bit more in the future, but I wanted, we're looking for maybe 10 partners, 10 customers to join us to be, I'll call it alpha sites, to work with us on this new application framework, also sometimes called HFTM, high frequency data management, IDX. We are having a getting started webinar in March, some chance it'll slip until April, and an accelerator in Montreal. So an accelerator, we hope to get maybe 10 partners, maybe 20 people, elbow to elbow with 6, 7, 8 engineers from Autodesk to work on this new technology. Now the accelerator, we're thinking April, again in Montreal. I think there's some chance it's gonna slip in May as we've been working on doing Hello World, finishing up documentation, finding some holes in this new technology. A little bit more, you may go, so, what is this thing? I'm gonna run a video here and hopefully it's not too choppy coming through GoToMeeting. This is a web page, and through a web page, we are designing a web app. We're designing a software as a service. In this case, we're going to build a website that allows a customer, an end user, to design a window that will then be manufactured, fabricated by, an Autodesk customer. And you'll notice the model that the website is driving is actually, in this case, in Fusion 360. So we are literally exposing a CAD model and a CAD modeling, editing, creation system through a web page, and we are dynamically, through a web page, building, authoring a web page to allow the end user, the customer, who, in this case, may be an architect, who's speccing out specific windows for a building. I say windows, this could be any product that needs a bit of configuration, any product that you want to enable an end user to tailor. And it's not necessarily just a product. It could be you're a large manufacturer and maybe you have 100 engineers or 100 sales engineers who actually do what I'm going to call some lightweight design, where giving them a general CAD system like Fusion or Inventor or SolidWorks is, just not going to work. These are sales engineers. And wouldn't it be nice to build a website where these sales engineers could very easily spec out a product that when the spec is done, the CAD model is already done and can be fed straight into manufacturing for machining, fabrication, assembly, bills of materials, all those things you do to dramatically shorten the time from the customer finding out what the customer wants to that information being fed into manufacturing such that it can be delivered quite quickly. Again, it's not just, I say manufacturing, this could be, digital fabrication, allowing people to do design on a web page of, let's say, a building. And again, having that information being fed straight to a factory where the components of the building are built. And again, being able to design this configurator type of web page from a web page. And what we would literally deliver is, an Autodesk hosted design, customized design experience. Very quick and easy. Okay, you want to get involved? Be aware our Forge accelerators are coming up. Now, the Forge accelerators are for people who have a project, they know what they want to deliver. It's first, and when you send someone, you really need to send someone who knows web development basics, and maybe also a subject matter expert, kind of a proxy for the customer, or maybe a customer themselves. These accelerators typically have 10, 12 companies, 20 or so partners, customers, who then spend a week with 6, 7, 8 Autodesk engineers to help you climb the learning curve and end the week with a prototype, with a working demoable prototype you can show end users, you can show customers. So it's not just, an academic exercise. This isn't training. This is kind of working through your first scrum with cloud and Autodesk Forge experts at your side. So again, what Forge does, Forge takes us to this third growth phase. So again, perpetual CAD software, individual products over the last 15 years. We're now maybe 2 years into this switch to subscription and subscription of collections, of bringing in many new customers, because the cost of entry of subscription for a year is so much lower than the cost of perpetual software. And we are on the way to building out the third wave, which is software as a service. It's a cloud, it's a web-based world based on Forge and using technologies and adding value to Autodesk software as a service like BIM 360, Fusion 360. And I haven't even mentioned things like Shotgun on the M&E side, with more software as a service offerings from Autodesk in the works. And that's a presentation for today. And we are 40 minutes in. Stephen, do we have some questions we want to talk about live, or how's it going?
One question.
Go on, Vera.
So one question is about ARVR Toolkit class. Do you have any link to it?
No. It's only been about 2 weeks ago we made this decision. We're going to take the ARVR Toolkit, and instead of making it a commercial service, we're making it a code sample on how to use Forge as the front end of your ARVR content publishing. We are about 2 weeks away from publishing a website that will have all the details and the code samples up on GitHub on exactly how to use the ARVR Toolkit. So I ask you, be patient. If you signed up to be a beta site for the ARVR Toolkit, and I know we've had about 230 people sign up for that, we will directly reach out to you as soon as that new ARVR website is live. And the other thing you can expect is, if you keep your eyes on the Autodesk Forge blog, we will clearly have a blog posting about the ARVR Toolkit as soon as we go live now. And again, in about 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and I have already put a flea in Cyril's ear about running a webinar specifically on the toolkit.
Absolutely.
So that will be coming. That'll be forthcoming, just not part of this DevDays online series.
Well, something else I thought I would mention. Now, this DevDays is a bit different than in the past, in that almost all the classes are open to the general public, not just to ADN members. Now, something relatively new, and I want to make sure those of you who are ADN members didn't miss it. We are giving 2 presentations that are ADN members only. They include non-disclosure information. One of these non-disclosure classes is about Revit, and one of them is about Inventor. The Revit class is Thursday, February 8th. The Inventor NDA class is Wednesday, February 15th. These non-disclosure classes take place immediately after the public versions of our talking about what's happening with Revit and Inventor. For those of you who are ADN members, just go to the ADN extranet, adn.autodesk.io. If you go to headlines, and at the bottom here, where am I going? Is it calendar of oh no. Stephen, where do I need to look here?
Third one down, Jim.
Third one down. Oh, register now for DevDays online webinars. Now, yes, we've made this a bit hard for you to find, which is why I'm pointing it out. So register now for DevDays online. Many of you have seen this, but new at the bottom, added. We're holding 2 special webinars for ADN members only. So Thursday at 8 a.m., we have a Revit API open to the public, and then Thursday at 9 a.m., we have an NDA, ADN members only, presentation on what's coming up with the next release of Revit and its APIs. And again, we have that same pattern happening on Wednesday, February 14th, which is next week. 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is is the open to the public information on the next release of Inventor and Vault. And then at 9 a.m., we will be presenting the NDA, non-disclosure information, only for ADN members. Okay, more questions, Stephen? Anything else, or Viru?
So nothing yet, but just to let everyone know, if you do have a question, please go ahead and type it into the question console, and we can address it then. I mean, maybe Jim, while we're waiting, you could just show the agendas for the webinar series again on that page, just so everyone can see the dates. Scroll up a bit.
You mean all of these?
Yeah, so obviously the next one is tomorrow, when Sean Gilmore will be giving basically a Forge platform roadmap. That is essentially going to be a repeat of the roadmap presentation he gave at Forge DevCon at AU. So if you came to that, there's probably not a lot new in there. And then obviously we have Revit API, Civil 3D, and InfraWorks on Thursday, February the 8th, which, as we just said, is split into two. There's the things we can talk about in general, and then there's the things that have to be under NDA, which is split. And then the following week, obviously Tuesday, February the 13th, is more details about the new Forge API. So that's Cyril Favell will be running that one, doing some deep dives into actual code samples that use new Forge APIs like webhooks. And then on Wednesday, we have the Inventor Vault and Fusion, which again is split into those two, public and under NDA. And then Thursday, we have AutoCAD and design automation, and that isn't split because we basically went through the new product information in December in our usual Meet the Experts webinar. So that's the recording for that is already available up on the ADN extranet for, and of course we have the AutoCAD preview guide for anyone involved in the beta. So that will be purely public information on the Thursday. And then the following week, with Tuesday, specific dedicated to BIM 360. And is that the last one then, Jim, or do we need to scroll down further?
I think that's the last one.
That's it.
Okay, yeah. And we do have a question. Will it be possible to change the iPart-like design from a browser in real-time mode? So I guess talking about iParts, that's Inventor, but I think it's probably referring back, Jim, to your IDX demo.
Yeah, well, I'm not too sure of the question. So let's keep in mind, Forge Design Automation for Inventor will be Inventor on the cloud as an engine. That will include iParts. So if you have an app that can run Inventor, with Inventor doesn't have a user interface where you're feeding changes in like parameters in attributes and properties, and you're feeding changes that will create, new iParts or families of iParts, and then deliver those parts results back to you. I think the answer is yes. When it comes to, that demo I showed with HFTM, IDX, when it comes to an Inventor engine behind the scenes there, the fact, I don't know the initial implementation of that new app framework, HFTM, IDX technology, is going to be using Fusion as the geometry engine. We will be adding more geometry engines over time, but I'm a little cautious about speaking to the future, because the Fusion one is, that's going to happen in a few months from now. That'll be something you'll be able to touch. The other engines, we don't have specific dates. I couldn't tell you if it's, late this year, is it next year? So I'm going to hold off and really point you at design automation for Inventor is probably where you want to look.
Yeah, so we're starting to get a few product-specific questions, Jim, and I think it's probably best to defer those to the appropriate webinars. So it's got one about what's about iLogic and iParts in Fusion 360. Well, we don't have any Fusion 360 experts on this call, so I'm going to ask that you come back to the DevDays online webinar where we cover Fusion 360, or if for some reason you can't attend that, you're very welcome to email us the question and we'll find the answer for you. I mean, Autodesk emails is first name.last name@autodesk.com, so you can email jim.quancy@autodesk.com or stephen.preston@autodesk.com.
Yeah,
And we'll pass that on to someone who can answer.
Stephen, I do want to use that question as an opportunity to point out to people, Autodesk's intention, and this is probably new over the last couple months, Autodesk's intention is not to replace Inventor with Fusion 360. We are positioning the two products in different places. For somebody doing large team, large machine, large part count design, Inventor is the answer, and we have no intention of Fusion filling that role. The role that Fusion plays is that connection between design and manufacturing. It's optimized for single part, for small assemblies, and so very much that. And when we're looking at things like additive manufacturing and generative design, where again that interface where design meets manufacturing, that's the role. That's where Fusion 360 plays a role. So when I hear something like, what about iParts in Fusion? The answer is no. We're not going to turn Fusion into Inventor. That's not what this is about. And again, if that's a surprise to you, this is a relatively, it's only been the last 2 or 3 months here at Autodesk that we've gotten really clear internally on how we're positioning Inventor and Fusion for really 2 different kind of use cases, and not one replaces the other over time.
Yeah, and I'm sure that will evolve over time as well, that positioning even more.
Well, we all, again, crystal balls, no one has one. One does one best on where we're going. But you can, until you get there, you don't really know. Use your best judgment.
Yeah, but if you're interested in Fusion, you should definitely come to the Fusion webinar. We had another question. Actually, it seems to have disappeared now, but asking if design automation for Revit would support read-write of families. So, so the short answer is yes, it will support things like family creation. This isn't like Viva model derivative API that only accepts RVT files and not RFA. This is literally design automation for Revit is literally a headless Revit on the cloud. So any non-UI operations that you can automate in Revit should be available in design automation for Revit. So here's a question for you, Jim. How do I register to join ADN?
www.autodesk.com/join-ADN. In fact, why don't I go there? www.autodesk.com/join-ADN. ADN membership options. Start using ADN. Apply for ADN membership. Apply for a professional membership. And here's the different tiers. There's ADN Open, which is really a website and a lot of community content. ADN Standard, which is a paid membership, gives you, and the 2 biggies for paying for an ADN membership is access to virtually all Autodesk software for use for development purposes, but also direct one-on-one guaranteed response, private support from Autodesk. An ADN professional is about getting faster support. You might not want to wait 2 or 3 days, and you want to get an answer in a day, and you want to. It also includes a bit of telephone consulting, one-on-one to kind of help you with your development efforts.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out as well that Forge support is run separately from ADN support. Do you want to mention that, Jim?
Yeah, I thought the other thing I'd do is I'm going to autodesk.com/ I think it's ADN Open. And here you can kind of see everything, all the public information, blogs, forums. It points to, where to go for cloud information. If it's about Forge, www. Oh, you know what I should do? developer.autodesk.com. In a pure cloud world, developer. The name of your favorite technology supplier.com generally gets you to their API information. And here's where you've got, build with Forge information. Solutions, documentation, pricing, getting help. like finding answers in Stack Overflow. Here in documentation, things like SDKs. We've got, wrappers, Node. Many of you maybe, if you're desktop people, maybe even using C# or VB.NET. Okay, any other questions, Stephen? How we doing?
We just have a Forge one here. Any news on addressing level of detail in Forge? So again, that's one. If you come to tomorrow's talk, I have a roadmap class by Sean Gilmore. We can ask him that. He's a guy who makes the product development decisions for Forge. The short answer though is that if you're talking about the ARVR Toolkit, then that is being designed to factor in things like line of sight, level of detail, occlusion, all of those kinds of things to reduce the complexity of a model as much as possible. In terms of the viewer, not yet, but Sean can provide more details about that tomorrow. And I think there we've run out of questions, Jim, so it's probably an opportune time to wrap this up and give everybody 5 minutes or so back of their day that they weren't expecting.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. I hope you join some of the classes taking place over the next 2 weeks. Don't be bashful asking questions, offline, online. We're here to help you, and have a wonderful day.